All right, this is J. Okay, I'm not calling myself fucking JT. I don't care who knows me. I cannot take
Jay
myself.
Z.
No, JT. That's what I was gonna go with. Like, and I stopped myself. I couldn't even say it in confidence. I just felt retarded for just even thinking about saying JT. So,
Where does the T come from?
so my middle name is Thomas.
Oh,
When I
okay.
was like like between the ages of like 8 and like 13, my siblings and some of my friends would call me JT, and then I eventually dropped it because it was
I had
pointless. 'Cause I didn't even necessarily like the nickname; it was just kind of a thing.
yeah, I had a friend in high school who always went by JD, and he tried to drop it, but we just kept calling him JD.
Gotcha.
He doesn't talk to any of us anymore. I wonder why.
This is a great start of the podcast.
All right, I'm
Okay.
Tristan. My Twitter handle's at tdizzysun. If you want to follow me for the one time a year I tweet. And my co-host is Jonah. His Twitter handle's something with letters in it.
Yeah, no, my Twitter handle is at EMGPJT. We'll put it in some kind of show description because you're just not going
Yeah,
to remember it.
yeah. No, you got to memorize our Twitter handles.
Yeah, I mean, my Twitter account is mostly for retweeting about the Seahawks and just kind of shit posting in general. That is my brand. That is my forte.
I don't even know what I post on my own Twitter.
You don't tweet that much, actually.
I think I have one tweet in the last month.
You
I
use
tweeted a bunch on March 9th, and the last one before that was the 26th.
you use a lot in the Pro Fantasy Focus account that we quickly abandoned after like a week.
Yeah, I tweeted a lot on that. All right.
Okay,
So
let's.
I've
Oh,
well, so this podcast is called 0 and 16. It's about the Browns and how they're going to go undefeated at some point, possibly in 2018. I followed the Browns because I don't really know why. I just started watching games in 2017 or 2016, whatever the year was, 2 years ago. I had Travis Benjamin, so I guess it was 3 years ago on my fantasy football team, and I just randomly started watching the games to see how he would do, and I just never really stopped.
yeah. Well, I think we're also both Sashi disciples.
Oh yeah, Sashi Brown, the best GM ever. Uh, I don't know why he's not employed somewhere else already.
Is he
Someone
really
get on
not?
that.
I'm actually kind of surprised by that.
Last time I checked, he wasn't.
Well,
Uh,
Sashi, if you're somehow listening to this pod, we'll have you on as a permanent host. You can
Yeah,
talk
we'll
it.
hire you. Not for quite as lucrative of a contract as you signed with the Browns, which I don't even know what it was.
We can send him Domino's coupons when we get 60 points, and he'll get the free pizza every time. Yeah, that's
Yes.
really the best I can do. I mean, he can use my Costco
I
card. That's also a thing I can give him.
I got a gold dollar somewhere. It's not a real gold. It's like the Thomas Jefferson one. But it's like worth $1.
I have
Anyways,
an open 1995 Pokemon card pack. That's also
ooh, maybe worth $1.
yeah.
All right, so today we're going to be going over the last season, the trades that those bunch of trades, the blockbuster ones that just happened, free agency because that starts very soon, and then the draft, which I believe is about a month and a half away. It's at the end of April, at the start of April.
Yeah, hold on. I have the NFL's calendar open on here, and it starts on April 26th through the 28th, which
So yeah,
it's
about a month and a
yeah,
half.
every year it's either like the first weekend of May or the last weekend of April.
Okay.
So I don't know why. I mean, I don't know like necessarily how they pick the dates. It's just kind of that is generally where they shoot for.
All right. Probably they probably have some science for it that they'll never tell us. Just like they'll never tell us what a catch is.
This year they actually during the owners meeting they did change some of the catch rules. I'm not super well versed, but they finally ruled that Des Bryant would have caught the ball in the
I
2014
did hear
playoffs.
about that because they posted a bunch of videos on YouTube. The NFL channel did, and I watched them all.
Would you like
Uh,
how would you describe the catch rule for you can understand?
oh, I have no idea how to explain it. Basically, I think they're getting rid of football moves. I'm not really
Oh,
sure.
that the football move is the most arbitrary garbage because there is no reason. I mean, a football move is like is first the two-step thing has been a thing for a long time. Okay, whatever. But as we saw in the Steelers versus Patriots game, Like if the ball like loses like even an inch out of your hand, then it wasn't even a catch. And that kind of stuff just
I
needs to go away.
could go on an hour rant about the Jesse James catch.
Oh yeah, you're
And
also a Steelers fan, which is
I am, which is a little bit contradictory, but it works because the Browns and the Steelers games are never really big.
Manziel.
So,
I think almost beat the Steelers in like 2015.
Manziel needs to get back in the league. I could do another hour on Manziel, but let's focus on what went wrong last season. And the easier question to answer is actually what went right, but my main things on what went wrong is I don't think they handled the quarterback situation very well.
Oh, they took Kaiser along like so foolishly. Like it's one like I understand that for quarterback is just terrible, then you need to pull him. And I get that. Kaiser was not very good for most of the year and during a lot of stretch of the year. But constantly benching and putting him back in the game was just like not good for him or any of the backups because there was literally games where Hugh Jackson was just like, all right, 2 picks already, let's put in Kessler, and then Kessler was not even much better. And I think Kevin Hogan had like 2 good quarters.
He was probably out of what 3 he played.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kaiser coming out of college, I believe back in the draft, no one really thought he was going to be a starter right away. And everyone thought he would need a year or 2 to just, be benched. The smarter idea probably would have been to stick with Brock, like as much as everyone would have hated it. But at least with him, you know what you're getting, and you're not destroying Kaiser's career right out the gate.
Well, Kaiser was also I think the youngest quarterback since Alex Smith to come into the league, right out of college, and be a starter.
I mean,
because he's only 20. He's younger than both of us, and we're both like I'm 22.
I'm 21.
Yeah, so it's
yeah. I think. I mean, he's going to Green Bay. He's going to learn under Aaron Rodgers. 5 years, he may be, the next big thing. But for right now, I don't think anyone's even dreaming of starting Kaiser anywhere.
There was a good fake Ian Rappaport tweet saying that, that Kaiser has a shot to be the starter if Aaron Rodgers' deal doesn't get done. Which is fake Ian Rappaport Twitter is the best version of Twitter.
And another.
Well, I think the problem is that they didn't use David Njoku quite enough. They didn't use Duke Johnson far much enough. I mean, I've been a Duke truther since he came in the league, and I've been drafting him in the 5th round every year. And now I probably should stop doing that because I just don't think Q will ever see the Duke Johnson that I see. But there's just a lot of weird moves, like briefly putting Duke at wide receiver and then quickly just ditching that plan.
I mean, really from what I saw, they really didn't even do it. Like they had him line up in the slot 2 or 3 times a game, but that was really it. And I mean, Duke Johnson is a really good receiver. He had a lot of good games in fantasy with just off his receiving stats, but he's just they never give him any carries. I'm looking at his stats right now. He averaged about 5 carries a game for about 20
yards.
What
is his height and weight? Because he's also he's a smaller running back.
I think he's 5'8".
5'8". So he's
sure.
kind of
He's 5'9"
Tariq Cohen
and 210.
Is 5'6", so it's not a great comparison, but I mean it's probably still they're probably comparable.
Yeah, and there's really a lack of other weapons. Isaiah Crowell sucks. I'm just gonna go out there and say that. I really hope they don't re-sign him. Just let him walk. Who cares? Corey Coleman is just never healthy. He's been good when he is, but he's just not been, and he didn't really have a good connection with Kaiser from what I saw. There was a couple big get throws downfield where it looked like they were on it, but Kaiser overthrew him a couple times. And then Josh Gordon at the end of the season, he was looking good. He didn't do very good against Chicago, but he ended the year good, 4 receptions, 115 yards against Pittsburgh. Which they rested a lot of starters, but I don't think they rested anybody in their secondary.
Well, I think even against Green Bay, which is not necessarily a good defense by any means, but they had a chance to win that game against Green Bay. It
was in overtime.
Yeah.
If they didn't miss 5 tackles on that last play, they might have managed to do something.
Well, and that was like I think so. I haven't like to tell you the truth, I am not an avid Browns fan. Browns Nation out there who's listening, but I think it was like I think that game alone was almost like a microcosm of Deshaun Kaiser's rookie season because he made some of the best throws of his entire season that year, but he also made some of the worst like throws and let interceptions during the same game.
Yeah,
And what
and
and Josh Gordon, I just think made Deshaun Kaiser so much more of a better quarterback. And Josh Gordon's probably a top 15, top 20 wide receiver though, so that's
especially once he gets a full off season in. I mean, I don't even know when the last time he, actually but out of
have you
practice
seen
played
the
football
pictures?
was like 3 years ago. Yeah,
He looks buff
and
like
and he
right now.
came in. Yeah, he comes in his first game back from reception, and he posts 85 yards against the Chargers, who have a surprisingly good pass defense with Casey Hayward. And then next week against against the Packers, who haven't had a good pass defense, he posted 69 and a touchdown. Ravens, very good pass defense. He only got 47 yards there. Chicago, I don't know what happened that game. He only had 19, but then again, he ended the game year strong with 115. That's what 5 games, and he was at 300 yards. That's not a
Well, that's
bad
not
little
that's
start.
well. How much does Rashard Higgins have?
Oh, I have no idea. He was pretty good though down the stretch, wasn't he?
I think so. I'll have to pull him up. Go on that road to
Um,
world. But I think
he kind of tapered out at the end.
yeah, because I think
I
there was like a
think.
4 game stretch where I even picked him up in a couple of my fantasy leagues.
At the start of the season, he busted out 95 yards receiving, but he never topped 50 again until against the Steelers.
Gotcha.
But against the Steelers, he did have 3 receptions, 68 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that's a good game, no matter what way you look at it.
How would you define South the Valve season? Because he was used a lot more than David Njoku, but I never saw him like really flashing that much.
Honestly, I can't even remember seeing him make a play.
I saw him targeted quite a bit. Hold on, I got his stats.
He had
right in front
one
of me.
touchdown on the season,
Yeah, he had 1 touchdown, 395 yards.
averaging 12 a game. I would say start Njoku over him.
Hmm.
I mean, he might be a better run blocker. I'm not sure on that. I'd have to check the tape more in depth. But I'd start Njoku over.
Well, so now with something we'll get into very soon here. But if you look at their depth chart, I mean, the fact that now they have Jarvis Landry, which I'm not a Landry fan by any means. I think he's a wide receiver imposter. But that
So
aside,
you think he's more of a running back?
yeah, I mean he's a lot more like Ty Montgomery than he is like to other wide receivers. But at the same time, he can catch the ball. Like he might only get you 4 or 5 yards to catch, but I mean it's better.
If you get 5 yards every single catch, and you can do that every play, you can dunk your way down the field and get touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean it's not the most fun offense, but now that you have Tyrod Taylor, who is, I mean, there's a good he might not even actually like win the starting quarterback job come September, depending on who they pick in the draft. But having just Tyrod there, he's just one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league since he started in 2015 with Buffalo, after being a backup for a few years. And a lot of teams like Seattle was trying to get him as a backup, and a lot of teams were. I think he was getting I think at least 10 teams when he left Baltimore were trying to get him. And there was a good reason for it.
Yeah, for sure. But first, let's talk about the defense play from last year. I think the defense was definitely better from the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best way to look at the defense from last year is there was one play against the Bears where Myles Garrett picked off Trubinsky and ran it all the way back for a touchdown, which they were behind, and I believe that play would have been a momentum changer, which I'm not saying they would have, because they think they lost by 10 points or something, but it could have won them the game just by how their attitude would have changed. But I believe it was Emmanuel Ogba was offside, so the entire play was negated. And I think that's a very good microcosm of the Browns' defense last year.
Yeah, I mean they didn't. I think they were a good defense for much of the year. I mean, like I shouldn't say like yeah, they're probably about an average defense, but I think their defensive back. I'm gonna say his name wrong, but Brian Body Calhoun. I think he was like far as completion percentage and passer rating allowed. I think he was like in the top 5 for most of the year.
Which is funny because about a year ago, I was playing Madden, and he was doing very good for me in Madden, and no teams wanted to trade me for him when I was trying to trade him away because they were like, "Oh, this guy's not good." And now, fast forward a year, he's out there killing it. Their defense was ranked overall pretty poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I think this might be the offensive statistics that I'm looking at.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if your offense is just constantly turning over the ball or going 3 and out, then your defense is going to be on the field for much longer than they should be.
They were let's see, Cleveland was the number 7. Rushing defense, I believe. Number 7 rushing offense. Oh, I'm set to defense. Yeah, no, they only allowed 1,500 total yards throughout the year, which was 7th.
I think that was more than its entire Seattle offense's rushing yards.
That's not too surprising. Defensively, they were 17th, which is a lot worse.
I mean 7th. So they're about average.
But that's where the trades come in, where they just traded for Randall. And I think
Demarius Randall, and then they traded away Danny Shelton. I think that part of it was just trying to get some of the draft picks they lost when they traded for Landry and Taylor. But I think in general I think it just kind of shows that when you have guys like Emmanuel Ogbah and Larry, I'm never going to say this name right, but Ogunjobi, and Myles Garrett. I think it's just showing that there's there's some higher upside guys on that defensive line.
And from what a lot of stuff that I was seeing was that people were saying that since they moved from a 3-4 where they only use one nose tackle to a 4-3, he's just not as important of a player to have, just because of the scheme change where they really need more of like a linebacker, which is something that people overlook a lot. Christian Kirksey is a very underrated linebacker. I think he had like 130 tackles this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So you had 86 solo tackles and 52 assists.
Yeah, and then their other linebacker, Joe Schobert, had 144 as well. I believe both those guys are generally playing middle linebacker.
And and Joe Schobert forced 3 fumbles and had an interception.
Yeah. And Kirksey got 2 himself, and I think both these guys are very underrated for what they did last year. 2 guys with I think those guys were both in the top 10 in total tackles in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not very often you see 2 guys with that many tackles and no one talks about it. 12 total tackles for loss between the 2 of them.
I think that's pretty good.
6.5 total sacks between the 2 of them. Like, if Bobby Wagner or Luke Kuechly had these kinds of seasons, people would be talking about it.
Yeah, they'd be like, yeah, that's a Pro Bowl caliber season, that's fine.
But they're on the Browns, so no one cares.
So how many total sacks does the team have? Because I'm looking at the defensive linemen, and by far and away, Myles Garrett had the best season. I mean, not surprisingly, since he's a once-in-a-generation kind of talent.
They had 34 total sacks.
And where does that put him in the league as a whole?
That's a good question. I think the Steelers had the most at like 57 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if there's an easy way to look at this. Team defensive sacks. Here we go. Steelers led the league in 56 stats. Cleveland's 34 puts them at 21st overall.
Gotcha.
And so the top 5 teams were the Steelers at 56, Jags at 55, Panthers at 50, Rams at 48, and surprisingly the Titans at 43. I didn't really think they had a good pass rush.
There's a couple of guys I'm forgetting, but they had a couple good defensive ends.
I know they have Arakpo, and I know he's really good.
Yeah,
but
that was the name I was thinking of.
And they have a defensive tackle, and I only remember him because he got bowled over by Marshawn Lynch in a game, and it was funny. But Jarrell Casey, that's who he is. He's an all-pro defender, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Titans' defense wasn't that bad, all considering last year. I think their biggest... I mean, it was still not a great defense. That secondary has a lot of kind of no-name guys who probably shouldn't be starting NFL as far as their secondary goes. I feel they have a good safety, if I remember correctly. But,
all right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the trades real quick. Tyrod Taylor. I'm going to talk about this a lot more when we get to the draft in probably about 20 minutes. But I think the Tyrod Taylor move is really, really good because it gives them a lot of flexibility on who they want to draft. A lot of people are saying they need to go with the most pro-ready, which I believe most people say is Josh Allen or Josh Rosen, one of the Joshes.
Yeah, no, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen. If you're picking Josh Allen number 1 or number 4, you're kind of just accepting the fact it's going to be a project because he has some incredible. He probably has the highest upside from pure athletic ability, and we will talk more about that, in a little while when we get more into the draft. But Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, I think, are considered the two most pro-ready.
Yeah, so if the Browns aren't in love with one of those two guys, so they like Baker Mayfield or what's his name, Lamar Jackson. If they like one of those two guys more, and they're definitely more developmental, take him, sit him for a year behind Taylor. They got a year in his contract, and just let him run it out.
Well,
they learn the offense, and then next year you're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, he's so a lot of things people will say about Tyrod Taylor is that he's not entirely flashy. But what Tyrod Taylor does give you is he doesn't turn over the ball. I think last year he only had 4 interceptions.
Yeah, he only had like 12 touchdowns, 14 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. His career completion percentage is 62.4, which is pretty good.
And he's never had more than 6 interceptions in his entire career. And he's definitely probably even the best rushing quarterback in the league.
Which is something a lot of people look over when they talk about Tyrod Taylor, but it is never not mentioned when it comes to Cam Newton.
Well, so if you look at Tyrod Taylor and Cam Newton's numbers just from pure efficiency standards as a passer, Tyrod Taylor is right up there. And so I think with having Tyrod on the Browns offense with Jarvis Landry who can catch the ball, I think it's going to give the offense a lot more of a steady hand. And especially, if they can keep guys like Josh Gordon, then I just think it's only going to get better.
I think they're definitely going to re-sign Josh Gordon. I'd say sign him to a 5-year deal. Give him a decent contract. Who cares at this point? We know he's good. We know he's going to be good. Re-sign him.
Well, Walter Football had the 2 biggest free agents coming in this year for wide receivers were Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon. And they already got Landry, so they can hold on to Gordon. And
Gordon he's like on a restricted free agency, so he can't really sign with anyone else, I don't think.
Yeah, because I think they just need to give him a tender, and unless he wants to leave, which I can understand why you might consider it, but I mean the team is stuck with him, for better or for worse.
Don't pull a Pryor and fuck off after a year. Or profanity, sorry.
Sorry, this is a Christian podcast. We're not.
I'll bleep it out. I think, the Jarvis Landry trade is really good because Corey Coleman is a stretch the field guy. Josh Gordon's a stretch the field guy. Now you have the best, arguably slot wide receiver in the game. So if they want to, it's basically a pick your poison. They want to make sure Josh Gordon and Corey Coleman can't get the ball 50 yards down the field. Throw it to Jarvis, let him get a little bit of space. Maybe he can get some rack. Either way,
you're going
to get someone open.
Well, Landry will also pull the linebackers off him. So even during drop plays, they can even be benefit for Duke, or even if they get, let's say, Saquon Barkley in the draft, then I think it's just only going to kind of just add another element to the offense.
All right. And then, so Randall on the defense. I looked at his stats. I haven't seen any tape from him. My main concern with him is all last season, all I was hearing was how bad the Packers' pass defense was. and I never remembered hearing his name. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a pause. But I don't think he really needs to come in and be their number one corner. I think they can put him in at number 2 or number 3 or whatever. Because, what's his name? They had one guy who was doing very good, and then he got injured.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Jason McCourty, is he a safety or a corner? I always forget. I always get mixed in with his brother.
I think, yeah, Jason McCourty was it, and he is a cornerback, I believe.
Oh, so he played 14 games last year. And so did...
he was the one with the pick 6, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at Demarius Randall's numbers, what he has done is he's had... Sorry, excuse my cough.
I think he's never had less than 3 interceptions.
So he's had 3 interceptions every year, which is not bad whatsoever. He's had 2 pick sixes his rookie season 2015 and this season. He was a first round pick with the Packers. And if you look, right here doesn't show me his pass yards allowed, but he's a good tackling corner from what I've heard. He doesn't give up a lot of big plays.
Bring him in. His 3 interceptions this year would have tied him for the most on the team. Or he had 4 last year, right? Yeah, he had
4 last year, yeah.
So he would have had the most interceptions on the team. Bring him in, keep, Jason McCourty. No reason to get rid of him. I don't think he even has a big cap hit. And just bring him along, and I think we would see it improve. And the only thing I'm wary of is, like I said, I haven't seen any tape, but the Packers' pass defense was pretty terrible last year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they just have had a bad defensive coordinator for a long time.
And they finally got him out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also Jabril Peppers, if they could just kind of figure out his role better, because I just don't think he's really much of a deep safety, and I just think that's just not to his talent. Because he's more of almost like a linebacker, he's kind of like Cam Chancellor in a lot of ways, where you can put him on the line of scrimmage and a linebacker, and he's going to serve you pretty well. That's what in college he was more of a linebacker than he was a safety.
Yeah. All right. And then let's move on to free agency and what we think they should do there. Obviously, they already filled up some of the biggest holes. They got a cornerback, they got a wide receiver, they got a defensive back. So the biggest issue is obviously running back, and if they want to go with Barkley first overall, which I'll state my opinions on that later, then, don't sign anyone. They got Duke Johnson. He'll be a great number 2. Let Crowell walk. I don't know where he's going to end up. Maybe the Seahawks will try and sign him, and we'll go through that again. But I don't really see any reason to re-sign Crowell. He's probably going to want more money than they should give him anyways.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think with Crowell, if you kind of look at his... So he's had really one productive season, and that was in 2016. But if you just kind of look at his numbers... Because he had a couple of big games where he rushed for over 200 yards, but both those games he had runs for 50 yards.
He had the longest run in the NFL in 2016, 85-yard run.
Oh, that's pretty crazy. So I think, but when you take away those 200-yard games, he was only averaging I think only 3.9 yards per carry.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of people don't look at. The big play is important, but so is picking up 5 yards. Or 4 yards or whatever. That's also important to look at.
Yeah, because last season he only had 853 rushing yards, and honestly, this probably could have shocked you the most. He only had 2 touchdowns,
and that's down a lot from 2016 when he had 7. And hell, even in 2014, when he only had 185 carries, he got 4.
In his rookie season, 2014, he had 8 rushing touchdowns.
And that was on 148 carries. So on how many did he have? Over 200, right?
Yeah, this was the most carries he had his entire career, and it
was his worst season.
He only averaged 53 yards a game. That is not. I mean, 4.1 yards per carry is fine. It's a little bit above replacement level, but no, I think pairing Duke with a workhorse like Saquon Barkley, I think would really help the team out. Or even Doug Martin's a free agent, which Doug Martin, he's had up and downs. DeMarco Murray's also a free agent. You have, Jonathan Stewart. I don't imagine the team kicking the tires on him since I mean he's old but Frank Gore. I mean,
Didn't they already? I thought they
as well.
released Jonathan Stewart already.
Oh yeah, no, the Panthers just like I think on Wednesday released Jonathan Stewart. Him and Frank
Yeah,
Gore are both older running backs that are
I
free
just
agents. I mean,
I just googled Jonathan Stewart, and first result I got was Jonathan Stewart would be a good fit with the Seahawks. Please no.
yeah, I mean, so both of us are from the Seattle area, and I'm a lifetime Seahawks fan. So that would, I actually wouldn't hate it that much. For the Seahawks, I think they desperately need a running back that can last the whole season because
And
either,
that's not Jonathan Stewart,
well, I guess
but
to give Eddie Lacy credit last year, which I would be, if I would be very suicidal if he even made it to the Browns or because he probably done in the league, but Eddie Lacy didn't get hurt last season, even if he was too fat to run. He was he still could
he was there. He was at the games.
he was a play action threat.
That's one way to put it. Other needs, safety, I believe. Jabril Peppers. I don't even know what they were doing with him last year. Like, I don't remember hearing his name ever in terms of anything.
Which is really sad because he was probably my favorite prospect coming out of the draft last year.
Yeah, he had 57 total tackles, 3 pass defended, and an interception, which is okay. But I don't even know who their safety is alongside him. I just remember that he sucks.
Yeah,
I think is it Derek Kindred?
I think that sounds similar. And so I think
Yeah, it's Derek
the
Kindred.
safety market. I mean, Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, he's now a free agent.
I don't know if he'd want to come to the Browns, but
I mean, they could pay him King's ransom. The Browns could trade for Earl Thomas. They have the draft picks to do it. I don't see them making that kind of trade because from what I'm
that's
hearing,
a win now move.
The Seahawks they want a first round and a fourth round pick at least for Earl Thomas, something in that ballpark, which the Browns
And
have the capital to do so. But I think
it's not worth it
oh
because
no, they should stay put at the first and fourth picks of the draft.
and even if they did trade for him, he's not re-signing there at the end of the season. That's a win now move.
Yeah,
Not
which I mean, the Browns are probably
2-3
good.
years.
Yeah, 3 years. I mean, although we believe they're an undefeated quality team, so stick to the brand. Win now moves are fine, but when you have a young team, that's just not necessarily your best go-to.
Yeah, it makes more sense to build through the draft.
Which they have 5, 6 picks in the top, 100 picks.
like top 60 or whatever now. Browns interested in Allen Robinson. I think that's not going to go anywhere. I don't think they're going to sign him.
Yeah, I mean
Resign-
that would be a huge move, I think, though, because then you're talking about a receiver core with Josh Gordon, Allen Robinson, Jarvis Landry, and Corey Coleman almost as an afterthought. Which Corey Coleman's been pretty productive for the
When
most.
he's been on the field,
Yeah,
the issue being
I think he got hurt pretty much right out of the gate.
he
his
got
rookie
hurt
season.
week 2 against the Ravens, I believe. He came back in week 11, and I believe he missed week 13 with another injury.
Yeah, well, so I think even when he came back, which the mid game was his first game back, it looks like even if you just look at the stat sheet, even if you weren't watching the games, it's pretty clear that he just was never quite the same player when he came back from the injury, and which takes time. Like it's not fair to blame a guy.
Yeah, and I think obviously they're going to keep him around. I think he's going to do good next year if he can stay healthy, because that's how it's been both his 2 seasons. First week, he has a good game. This year, 5 receptions, 53 yards, and a touchdown. That's a pretty solid week. Last year was even better. I think it was 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. You can't get mad at that production in a week. Let's see. Yeah, last year, that was his second week against the Ravens. He had 104 yards and 2 touchdowns in his second game, and then he got injured and was out for 2 months.
I remember I had it in my fantasy leagues, and I was so stoked for it. But to kind of drift back to free agents, as far as team needs, I think they probably could use, like you said, safety.
Maybe sign Malcolm Butler.
Malcolm Butler that'd be a great fit for the team. He's not happy with the New England Patriots.
Understandably.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, a lot of New England Patriots have kind of made their way onto the Browns team.
Yeah, come back in Collins, Jamie Collins.
Oh yeah, how did we not even talk about Jamie Collins? Was he? Oh, he was hurt.
Yeah, I think he tore his hamstring or something. He wasn't really doing good anyways before that. I don't know if it was just maybe it was the injury, maybe he was mad about something, because that was reportedly one of the reasons they wanted to get him off of the Patriots anyways.
Mm.
But who knows? He'll be back next year. We'll see if he does any better. Hopefully he will, because he's a good player. So let's move on to the draft. I don't think there's any other really big name guys that the Browns should focus on signing besides maybe a left tackle. Oh, that's something we haven't even mentioned.
Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas
Where is he out?
might
His
retire.
injury? Do we know?
Huh?
Is he actually going to retire?
He hasn't really said. He said he's going to make the announcement by the 14th. So today's the 11th. So we'll see in a little bit. Hopefully he doesn't retire. If he retires, they need to sign a left tackle. Maybe Nate Solder. They got the money to do it. Just go out and get somebody. They don't have anyone on the roster that can do it. I don't even know who filled in for him last year, but I'm sure they weren't good.
Yeah. Also, I think this is not necessarily a great free agency for left tackles. I mean, Nate Solder is a fine left tackle. I mean, he's okay, but it's a pretty bad draft for tackles for the most part. There's a lot. It's a very good guard class, and so I'm not sure.
They got Joel Bitonio and J.C. Treader.
And Kevin Zettler, who was...
Yeah, and Kevin Zettler. And Treader can play both center. I believe that's what they've been having him at center and guard. I think he did both while he was in Green Bay. And I mean, maybe sign Chris Hubbard if Thomas retires. He's played every position on the line for the Steelers, and he was very good in 10 starts. That might be a good sign. He's pretty
young too, right?
I think this is like his. I think he was an undrafted free agent. Chris Hubbard is 26 years old.
Yeah, so I mean that's fine. So I think so for them, there's a few different ways they can go about it. I think this year they finally have to pull a trigger on a quarterback in the first round. I don't think one can really blame them that much for trading down the last few years. I mean, Sashi, rest in peace. Sasha, our Lord and Savior, he got there's a reason why they're in such a good position draft wise, but it's a double-edged sword because when they passed on, Deshaun Watson and Carson Wentz, even Jared Goff they passed on, who's had an okay year this year. It's kind of showing them that they finally need to pull the trigger because a franchise quarterback can really transform a team, and so I think they need to pick one at 1 or 4. I don't think it particularly matters which one they pick. It depends if they want is it Brandon Chubb, the defensive end? Because I don't want to say Nick Chubb. I know for a fact that's not the guy I'm referring to.
I have no idea what his first name is. I know who he is.
Yeah,
and this is what I think they should do, which not a lot of people are going to agree with me on. I think they should take Barkley at first overall, and then 4th overall they should take Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then draft Jackson in the 2nd round, and just let him sit a year behind Tyrod Taylor. The biggest knocks on Jackson are I believe it's turnovers, or maybe not turnovers, but accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Which right? I mean, and that's like Tyrod Taylor's forte. He makes the throws and he gets them in the windows. Sitting behind Taylor for a year, kind of let Taylor know that's basically what's happening. Is Taylor's gonna be the starter for a year. Don't even make it a contest. Let everybody know. This is the worst example to reference, but for example, with Jared Goff last year at the start of the season, Goff isn't the starter. There was no questions about it. Like this year with Kaiser, where it was, they said Kaiser was the starter, but then you see Cody Kessler, you see Kevin Hogan, you see Brock Osweiler, who I didn't even make the roster, but in the preseason. Taking snaps, you see with the first team, and no one really knows what's going on. That kills someone's confidence.
Well, Kaiser, to his credit, played really well in the preseason. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen a Browns quarterback. We saw RG3 preseason last year with the Browns. He didn't look bad. He looked good.
But then
And
he got injured like
yeah, I mean
25 seconds into the season.
yeah, I mean that's par for the course when you have uh, RG3 because eventually I think Charlie Whitehurst even came out of retirement.
He did, and he played like 5 snaps and then retired again.
Well, I think they even had Terrell Pryor during that same game.
There's actually a very good video on that by John Boyce. It's called the the Terrell Pryor problem, as to why their entire offense gets worse when your number one receiver becomes your quarterback because he can't throw to himself. It's like, oh, but they have a great wide receiver core. Why is he doing so bad? It's because he is their good wide receiver
Well,
core.
Terrell Pryor could also come back. I mean, obviously as a quarterback, but I mean he did terrible in Washington. So if he decides,
I think they should re-sign him in Cleveland because obviously they know how to get results from him.
yeah,
Maybe
I mean, for whatever reason, Hugh got it solved where Jay Gruden did it.
yeah, and that doesn't happen often. So I'd say re-sign him. Maybe on another 1-year prove-it deal. If you can get him cheap for 3 or 4 years, I'd say do it.
Mm-hmm.
He's not getting any younger, so he's got to kind of make a commitment now.
But to get back to the discussion of the actual quarterbacks, I mean the 5 quarterbacks they all have their own ups and downs. I think Sam Darnold is probably the most consistent quarterback in the class. He's not very flashy, but I think he's probably the most pro ready. Josh Allen, I mean, everyone has their own hot take about Josh Allen. I think he's pretty bad, honestly. I mean, but I think, Carson Wentz didn't look that hot out of college out of the gate, and I was a Carson Wentz critic. And so, I mean, what do I know about quarterbacks? So I think Josh Allen could be okay. Josh Rosen, he's probably, him and Baker Mayfield are probably the 2 best quarterbacks as far as pure talent goes in the draft.
And we're Seahawks fans, so we're not going to give a shit that he's 6 feet tall.
Oh yeah, dude. You know what? Okay, if we talk about Russell Wilson and Drew Brees, quarterbacks are 6 foot or under. They play top 5 in the league and are just fine. So Baker Mayfield's height is just a joke, honestly, and his character problems. The character problems they refer to as a one incident.
It was him being cocky on the field after winning a game, right?
Well,
That's what people are talking
suspended.
about.
He got I think there was some kind of assault charges laid against him. He learned his lesson. I mean, there's obviously.
I mean, it's obviously not another Manziel.
No, we'll probably never see Manziel. I think Ryan Leaf was the last time we saw a quarterback just that volatile.
He's trying to make a comeback. I hope it happens. I want to see him on the field again. Maybe the Browns re-sign him.
I mean, so I watched a lot of his games as a starter in 2015. Which, I mean, him and Josh McCown that year both were pretty good. But the problem with Manziel was that his talent's there. He had a lot of drops, but he just had a hard time leading his team.
Yeah, which is bad for a quarterback. He's a little bit older now. It's kind of messed up how it works in that you have these 20, 21-year-olds coming out of college with really no life experience. You're 21.
What if I gave you $4 million a season
to go lead the Browns to a Super Bowl?
Yeah,
I don't think I'd be able to pull it off. Especially when you consider half your team's 10 years older than you, and they've all been in the league forever. They're on the Browns. Something went wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and so you gotta somehow rally all these guys who basically are like, who's this guy? You've been on the team for a week.
Well, that's where I think Baker Mayfield can be a really big asset for the team because he is a natural leader. He is, he led his team success, and guys just kind of gravitate around him. And so that's where I would prefer him over Josh Rosen. So, in the Pac-12, there's just certain games, especially, I think one game during the Huskies, after 5 snaps. I don't want to ever accuse him of faking an injury, but all of a sudden he just walked off the field and claimed he sprained his wrist.
Josh Allen?
No, Josh Rosen.
Okay.
And so I think, and that wasn't the first time that season where he sidelined himself with a minor injury for the entire game. And I just don't think that's someone that the Browns need. Because I think the Browns, what they need someone that can lead a locker room and kind of create a better culture inside the team. And so I think someone like Baker Mayfield can do a really good job, just kind of getting the guys riled up and kind of just get them to kind of have some confidence to believe themselves. And Tyrod Taylor, from everything I've heard, is also a strong locker room guy. Same thing with Jarvis Landry. And so I think they should get some guys with some established backgrounds and positivity that can really kind of get rid of the stigma on the team and in the city.
Yeah, it's they're not the Browns anymore. They didn't just go 0-16. They're a new franchise. They're here to win. And they're here to make the playoffs or whatever. I mean, they made the playoffs
they won
like
one
6
game
years
in 2
ago.
seasons. And eventually, they're not going to be. Their roster is right now is way too good to only win one or no games again. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're looking at a team that could I think a wild card is probably a stretch, but I think you're talking about a team.
I know this is obviously the best way to judge anything. But last night I was dicking around on Madden, and I traded Landry and Taylor to the Browns for last season. I didn't make any other changes. Considered cutting Danny Shelton just to kind of go for, because he's not going to be on the team.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about him getting traded. Which he's been a good defensive tackle for the Browns.
We did talk about it. Remember, we were like 4-3, 3-4.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But so I don't think that. Oh shoot! I lost my train of thought. Danny Shelton.
Oh, but no, you're talking about Madden.
Oh right, the team went. So the first year, I did it 3 times. The first year they went 7-9. The second year they went 5-10, and the third year they went 7-9. Tyrod Taylor had it, usual Tyrod Taylor seasons, but that's a pretty big improvement from 0-16, just off of those 2 acquisitions. That's not even including the draft. Whoever they take, if they take Saquon Barkley, I think they'll have a way better year than they would with Isaiah Crowell. And if you don't believe me, look at Ezekiel Elliott and how he turned around the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think with the Cowboys, he had Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. And Dak, I think Dak Prescott pretty much right away kind of shocked the team and really was able to kind of have a Russell Wilson effect on that team. And, those 2 players alone, Zeke and Dak, took the team that was a 4-12 team to a 13-3 the next season.
I'm of the opinion that it's more because of Zeke than Dak, and my proof is that Dak sucked when Zeke wasn't on the field this year.
Hold on. That's a discussion. That's another debate for another day. Maybe on the Actual Amateur Hour Fantasy Football podcast, we'll talk more about Dak Prescott. Yeah. I think Dak Prescott was fine last year. I think they probably, I think they overperformed the year before because they had a much easier schedule. Because whenever you're the last in your division, you're going to have an easier schedule, just pretty much because you're playing all the 4th place teams in the AFC.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like for the Browns.
And now we'll probably see the Cowboys back in the playoffs next year, since I think they were 3rd in the division, or maybe they were 2nd.
I think they were 2nd because
they almost made the playoffs.
Yeah, no, the Seahawks. So when the Seahawks and Cowboys played each other in Week 16, there was a winner.
Yeah, the winner was out.
Yeah, so no, the winner
or the loser was
out in the race, and the loser went out. And so, and they were a fine team last year. I think their defense has actually gone a lot better.
All right, but let's ignore the Cowboys. This isn't about the Cowboys.
No, this is about the Browns going undefeated. The 16-0 pot.
The trades, I think they had almost no impact on the draft because they didn't trade away high picks. They
didn't trade away a single third. No, they traded
Tyrod.
A third for Tyrod. That's it. I was surprised how little.
And a 4th and a 7th for Landry?
I couldn't believe it. When I saw it on my phone, I had to double check. I was like, how did they not give up a 2nd round pick at least? I thought they were giving.
It was the first pick in the 3rd round, so it's almost it's as close as you can get to the 2nd round and be in the 3rd, which is still a good pick to have. Good players to get taken in the 3rd round all the time.
How many picks do they have in rounds 1 and 2?
They have. I think they have the 2nd pick in the 2nd, and they have the 1st. No, so they have the 1st and 4th in the 1st, and I think they're the 1st and 4th in the 2nd from the Texans.
And then they have another. Do they have 3 2-round picks? I think they have a second.
They do. I think I don't remember who they got it from.
Well, I think what the Browns could do is so the Seahawks. So if they ever want to trade back into round one, let's say to grab Lamar
They also
Jackson.
have the 64th pick in the second round.
Okay, so that's like towards the end of the draft, right?
Yeah, I think it's the last one in the round.
Yeah. So I think what they could do is they might be able to trade some of those seconds to get back in the first round. Like I know the Seahawks, they don't have a second or third round pick, so there could be a situation where they're trading, one of their high seconds, and maybe even the second they have, and just kind of try to jump up. And they could because the Seahawks are picking at 18, which is not a bad spot to be in during the draft by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, so they have the capital to move up if they want to. I don't think they will. I think they're going to just take the best player on the board when they can.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which I mean,
I think it's.
that's kind of like
I don't think.
now that they have a bridge quarterback and they will either be drafting one in the with one of their two first round picks or one of their early seconds for a quarterback. You're talking about finding a franchise quarterback that's going to learn under Tyrod, and really they just need to kind of get some more bodies on the defensive line and that linebacker core and the secondary and just kind of
Yeah, which is why I'm saying they shouldn't draft. You shouldn't reach for players that aren't worth the pick
mm-hmm.
because they have needs in almost every position. Take the best player available.
Yeah, and so I think with Barkley, that can just be a player that kind of just transforms the team. You saw Leonard Fournette, at the Jaguars last year, and Zeke and Gurley and Melvin. And I think running backs in the first round can always be kind of hard, especially very high. But I think with Barkley, when he ran a 4.4 and a 41 vertical leap, you just can't overthink it. There's a lot of people kind of having revisionist history and kind of showing all kinds of stats and graphs why drafting a running back in the first round is not great.
I mean, they mentioned stuff like Kareem Hunt and Kareem Hunt. They're like, oh well, you can get Kareem Hunt or what's his face on the Bears.
Well, no, you're thinking of Kamara on the Saints, which those are both
yeah,
good
no,
examples.
but 2 years ago, Jordan Howard
was
was a 5th round pick and he was second in the league in rushing. But when you think about it this way, Zeke was a 1st round pick. Cowboys are what, like 3-13 or whatever the year before. Next year they're in the playoffs. Fournette, same scenario with the Jags. Gurley took a couple years, but same thing. With, for example, Kareem Hunt, he came in, he led the league in rushing. Chiefs had the same exact year they had last year. I don't know if they're the same record, but it was a 1st round exit in the playoffs. It didn't change the identity of the team. He wasn't a transformative player. They arguably probably would have gone to the same spot if they had gone with Spencer Ware if he hadn't gotten injured.
Mm-hmm. So I think Barkley at number 1 could be a good move, especially because he's not going to fall to number 4. Because I think the Giants, from what I'm hearing, are getting ready to snatch him because they desperately need someone kind of in that running back core. And I think, even if let's say they don't get Barkley, it's a pretty good draft for running backs. You're talking about like even 3 running backs to go in. Darius Geis is getting a lot of talk. You're talking also about like Ronald Jones, Rashard Penny. I think there's like legitimately 15 or more good running backs in this draft. That would be high picks in most drafts. And so I think even if they don't get Barkley, they got plenty of chances to get someone to pair with Duke Johnson, to be a difference maker on the team.
All right. So we're gonna have to wrap this up because I got to go to work. But so for next week, I think we're gonna upload on Mondays. When do we want to upload these? Mondays? That sounds good. That's a good day.
Yeah. Well, so we'll talk about this later too, but we might even do another podcast this week as free agency is opening up. So
just kind of like a response to it.
Yeah. So I mean, it might even wait till the weekend because it's usually when moves kind of stall. But we'll be watching and seeing how some of the moves shake out because there's a lot. I mean, Kirk Cousins, I don't see giving the Browns a chance, especially after they trade for Tyrod. But I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of guys that that are worth looking into. Like you talked about Allen Robinson before, which would that would just only add to the already strong receiver core.
All right, yeah. So this is today's Sunday for us. You'll be seeing this on Monday, and then you'll probably see another video, maybe next Monday, maybe Friday, about the free agency. And we'll probably also go over where we're talking about looking at every game from last year and just reviewing the tape and seeing what went wrong per game to get a bigger picture. We might start that in the next episode, or it might be in a later one.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, guys. This is Jonah signing off.
And this is Tristan also signing off.
All right.
I'll come up with a better call sign or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Call.
We'll
what,
get some
sign
intro
off?
and outro music, so this is not so bad. But
Do 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 do.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.